I remember when I first moved here to South Florida 4 or 5 years ago, I had a compelling conversation, and really multiple of them, with Rick Macy, tennis coach who has the Rick Macy Tennis Center down in Boca Raton. He's famous for being the one who helped the Williams sisters out. Did you see King Richard, C-Cat?
I didn't. I saw a trailer.
So in King Richard, he is well documented for being the tennis coach that brought them out to South Florida, that trained them up, that got them on their way, and that created the dominant force that was the Williams sisters, who now call Palm Beach County home. The Williams sisters obviously were the greatest inspiration, specifically Serena, to Coco Gauff. Her introduction to like the world on the tennis scene was when she was able to beat Venus Williams in Wimbledon, and I believe in like the quarterfinals or something like that earlier on in the match. But like she went head to head with one of her idols and won at like 15, 16 years old. That's when everybody took notice, and she's continued to compile on wins and moments like she did over this weekend that have fortified and validated what people have said about them. I had a conversation with Rick Macy, and out of all of the tennis players I talked to him about, he kept going back to the fact that he believes Coco Gauff, and this was before her U.S. Open championship and before, obviously, this past weekend, Coco Gauff would one day be a world number one and could be one of the greatest tennis players of all time. Championship drama and big moments that are going to shape the future. The one that stands out to me as the most important, the most impactful, the most momentous championship moment we had over the weekend wasn't hockey, wasn't basketball. It happened on the clay court. And I'm talking about the queen from Delray Beach, Coco Gauff, the young American at 21 years old. Delray Beach native Coco Gauff wins her second major. She wins it in a comeback fashion against the world number one, Sabalenka, who, by the way, not very gracious in defeat. We'll get to that. But I want to start with the prowess and the momentum and just the absolute gangster that is Coco Gauff, who we were made aware of when she was 15 years old, and she has been unrelenting since. She is shaping herself up to be the single most important athlete from this area. And when I say this area, I mean Palm Beach County and Treasure Coast. She hasn't even entered her prime yet, and I already see the vision ahead that world number one in tennis is in her sights, right? She's number two right now. She just took down the number one. She's well on her way to being a woman who can call herself the best in the world at her sport. On top of that, she's someone who cares so much about this community, pours so much into specifically Delray Beach and the parks in which that she represented and grew up training in. But then also, she's someone who you can tell has a greater meaning to the greater world. Her going onto the world stage like she did and winning and just honestly it felt dominant at a certain point, the way in which she was making Sabalenka react to her and the way in which she was putting Sabalenka on her heels and taking over and her looking like the veteran who was renowned as the top player in the sport. Coco Gauff is absolutely a problem, and I've heard it from multiple people before, obviously, this moment, that she has all the makings of being a person that can be one of the greatest of all time. She mentioned that following her win, following getting her second ever major, that she has hopes. That is what her goal is to be the greatest. But all of this, it didn't just start on the big stage out in France over the weekend. C-Cat, Gauff had a incredible event in conjunction with New Balance at Pompey Park in Delray Beach a couple of months ago. I was lucky enough to be in attendance for this. She and her grandmother, who was, by the way, the very first person, the very first African-American to integrate Palm Beach County schools back in the 60s when she attended Atlantic High School. Her grandmother, who, as Coco Gauff was growing up, she was known as, we know your grandma. Okay, so you're doing big. And now it's the other way around for Gauff. She had this huge New Balance event at Pompey Park in Delray Beach where she brought out a major designer who worked on her shoe. She brought herself out there to the stage, interacted with kids, gave them tennis lessons, and shot a mini documentary highlighting her hometown. On top of that, she got up on the stage, and when they asked her what's next for the young woman who already has a major championship before you're 20 years old, the U.S. Open in 2023, who also has already become, I mean, C-Cat, I don't know if you knew this. Do you know who the highest paid woman in sports was last year?
No.
It wasn't everyone's favorite, Caitlin Clark. It wasn't the number one tennis player in the world in Sabalenka. It was Coco Gauff at $24 million in 2024. According to Forbes, the highest paid female athlete in the world last year was Coco Gauff, and she still finds her time in her day to make sure that she's pouring into the community that made her. Here she was predicting, manifesting, and telling her community what she was getting set to do. And I want y'all to listen close to this. Again, a couple of months ago at Pompey Park in Delray Beach, listen close to what she says and listen to the voice that calls back out to her, calling their shot on where she was going to get it done.
Hoping to get another slam, so that's the goal for this year.
Yay!
And then just...
You heard that. You heard that. I believe that was actually her mother from the crowd that yelled that out. And as I was filming that, and as the vibes were high there, of course, everybody there had belief in the young tennis star that she would get it done. I remember when I first moved here to South Florida 4 or 5 years ago, I had a compelling conversation, and really multiple of them, with Rick Macy, tennis coach who has the Rick Macy Tennis Center down in Boca Raton. He's famous for being the one who helped the Williams sisters out. Did you see King Richard, CK?
I didn't. I saw a trailer.
So in King Richard, he is well documented for being the tennis coach that brought them out to South Florida, that trained them up, that got them on their way, and that created the dominant force that was the Williams sisters, who now call Palm Beach County home. The Williams sisters obviously were the greatest inspiration, specifically Serena, to Coco Gauff. Her introduction to like the world on the tennis scene was when she was able to beat Venus Williams in Wimbledon, and I believe in like the quarterfinals or something like that earlier on in the match. But like she went head to head with one of her idols and won at like 15, 16 years old. That's when everybody took notice, and she's continued to compile on wins and moments like she did over this weekend that have fortified and validated what people have said about them. I had a conversation with Rick Macy, and out of all of the tennis players I talked to him about, he kept going back to the fact that he believes Coco Gauff, and this was before her U.S. Open championship and before, obviously, this past weekend, Coco Gauff would one day be a world number one and could be one of the greatest tennis players of all time. He talked about her athleticism. I mean, she could probably be a track star if that's what she focused on. That's how much torque she has and how quick she is. And, I mean, she comes from a family of great athletes, so it makes sense. I mean, within basketball, baseball, track and field, football, like the Odoms is actually, that family has a long line of tradition of being great in athletics. And if you ask anybody around Palm Beach County or Delray Beach, they'll let you know. I'm saying this right now because I want to put y'all on notice. Of course, the world has been giving Coco Gauff her flowers after what she did this past weekend. But I want y'all to really take note of what I'm about to say right here and reiterate from what I said earlier. Gauff is lining herself up to be the most important, the most impactful, and honestly, the greatest athlete from this area for modern day times. And that's putting her up against people like Lamar Jackson, who has a Heisman Trophy and a couple of MVPs in the NFL and likely will win a Super Bowl. That's putting her up against, obviously, Naomi Osaka, who's from Boca Raton, who herself, obviously, in her tennis journey is a little rocky now, obviously, but she started off as a burgeoning star in the game as well. And the many golfers that hail from this area, including your guy Koepka, C-Cat.
Yeah.
It's not just Gauff's game. It's her commitment to also pouring back into the community that made her. It's incredible.
Koepka, also a Panthers fan. I negated to mention that he's a celebrity Florida Panthers fan.
Oh, damn.
So he was wired after winning his most recent major at the playoffs. But I digress.
Well, the question is, we got to put up Zaslow versus Koepka and just see how much pull and motion both of them have. It's a motion Monday, so I think today Zaslow has more motion because he has a show dedicated to the Panthers for an hour and a half. What's Koepka doing for the Panthers today?
Getting ready for the U.S. Open. That's what he's doing today. He's probably at Oakmont right now looking at the rough and talking about how tough the conditions are like every other tour pro.
He should be. And you know what? Speaking of conditions and how tough they can be and how tough the opposition can be, Coco Gauff was so damn good out there in France, she beat the world number one into excuses. She beat Arina Sabalenka into a world of excuses, into a world of, it's almost like, I remember Kevin Hart in his stand-up special, he talked about how he had his uncle had gotten into a fight when he was growing up one day, and after the fight, he got beat so bad, he was like, did that dude have 8 arms? Was that an octopus? Was I fighting an octopus out there? Sabalenka was blaming the wind. She blamed God. She blamed greater forces. She also blamed herself more than she gave credit to the woman on the other side of the neck. Here was Sabalenka with a very polarizing reaction following losing in the final against Coco Gauff.
Then in the final, it was really, honestly, the worst tennis I played in the last, I don't know how many months. And the conditions were terrible, and she simply was better in these conditions than me. And I think it was the worst final I ever played. I was just making unforced errors. Like, I don't know, I have to check the statistics. I think she won the match not because she played incredible, just because I made all of those mistakes.
The interesting thing about this, C-Cat, is I would give her more credit for saying that if they hadn't played each other 10 times before and been split dead even. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's acting as if I always beat Coco, but today she beat me because it was windy and I was off my game. Well, she's 6-5 against you all time at this point. So that's my only issue with it. I love an athlete taking accountability and saying, I can be better. But I think she let the emotions and the moment get to her because she